think we ordered.
I mean, look at, you know.
Yeah, right.
He's in the Bahamas
And all three of those.
and they can't get out. Can't get out. This is, I hate to tell you inside baseball, but that's where he's at. Yeah. Oh, Garden City.
Good morning. I would like to welcome everybody to the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors meeting. We're at the BWB Building, 201 West 3rd Street, Jamestown, New York. Also streaming live on YouTube. It's February the 24th at 10:30. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Gary Henry's here. Dan Hetzenrader. Here. Ted Whitman.
Here.
Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Here.
Amy Harding.
Here.
Kevin Muldowney.
Here.
Dan DeMart. Here. Welcome. You should have already received the January 27th, 2026 minutes and had a chance to review those. We have a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll move the minutes.
Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. We'll move right into new business A, Sheridan 2 PV LLC presented by Christine and Millen. Millen's replacement or how?
Millen Junior.
There you go.
I liked Millen 2.0 better.
I like that.
Yeah.
Welcome, Matt.
Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have with us today via Zoom, Robert Carollo and Weston Hilligoss from RIC Energy. And I'll invite them for any updates and comments in just a few moments. I just wanted to mention that they are with us today. So today we're presenting resolutions and a deviation hearing for Sheridan 2 PV LLC. So on your agenda is a deviation resolution, and also the final resolution for this project. Just to refresh, this is a new construction of a 3 megawatt AC solar farm on 17.7 acres of a 30-acre parcel leased from Timothy Covert located at 2979 Middle Road, Dunkirk, New York, 14048, and that's located in the town of Sheridan. This is estimated to be a nearly $6 million project, and the application is for real property tax, sales tax, and mortgage recording tax abatements. Benefits requested. The real property tax savings is relatively minimal. It's estimated at $125,010 over the first 11 years. And I mentioned that because after that, the savings would transition to a negative total value of negative $10,231 over the entire term, which obviously they would cancel the pilot if it became a negative value at some point in time. This is a 25-year pilot schedule, which is consistent with other commercial solar pilots of similar size. Over the first 11 years, the pilot payments would total $153,326. If they end up keeping it for 25 years, it would be $403,582. But again, as you've heard before in other presentations, the state's new 575B assessment model, they could choose to opt out of the pilot once the savings are no longer there for them. I know Shelby's described the litigation previously. If the board wants to hear that presentation again, I'm sure she would oblige if you'd like to hear more about that. So yeah, the 25-year pilot schedule is necessary for payment certainty for the client corresponding to their project financing. In addition to the real property tax abatement, they are requesting sales tax abatement in the amount of $46,237 and a mortgage recording tax abatement in the amount of $68,916. We presented a due diligence resolution and preliminary agreement to the CCIDA board on November 18th, 2025. And since that time, we conducted a cost benefit analysis. The cost benefit ratio is 14:1 according to the MRB cost benefit model. In terms of SECRA, the town of Sheridan acted as lead agency for a coordinated SECRA review with a type 1 negative declaration determination. This review did include the CCIDA, and in a few minutes, Matt will talk more about the SECRA review and the resolution being presented. We also issued public hearing notices on January 9th of this year. The legal notice was published in the Observer on January 10th. And the public hearing was held on January 22nd at the Sheridan Town Hall. There were no comments received during the public meeting or public hearing or in writing. I mentioned that the deviation requested is deviation from CCIDA's uniform tax exemption policy. And that again is similar to many other community solar projects that the CCIDA has considered and approved. The deviation notices were mailed to each taxing jurisdiction and the school district clerk on January 30th. No written comments were received, but we did want to update you that Shelby and I met with the former Sheridan supervisor, Tom Wick, who's now retired, and also the town's attorney, Jeff Passafero. We met with them twice regarding the pilot request. And again, prior to his recent retirement, Mr. Wick was the town supervisor. That was when the processing began. Then they had a change of office on January 1st. Supervisor Wick had asked us to continue through the processing through that transition. And then the day of the public hearing, I arrived a little bit early and I met with the new town supervisor, Stephen Roach, and kind of did an IDA 101, talked about our process, this particular project, the public hearing notices, deviation notices, and so on and so forth. And he didn't provide any official comments. He did attend the public hearing and didn't make any further comments. So continuing to have the support of the town of Sheridan with regard to the pilot request. So now I'd like to invite Robert and Weston to provide any project updates that you might have. And also, if you could please update us on the town's activities with regard to the decommissioning plan and the host community agreement.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having us. Good morning. The Sheridan 2 solar project has made some progress since the last time we all met. The town recently approved and signed the decommissioning agreement and the host community agreement at the last board meeting on the 11th of February. So this clears our remaining municipal commitments. If you recall, the town already did approve the decommissioning plan last year, December 31st, I want to say. So what was finalized at the most recent board meeting was the decommissioning agreement, which legally codifies that plan, and that puts the plan into a binding contract between the town and the applicant. And just to summarize, it was the HCA was $1,800 per megawatt at 3 megawatts, which is $5,400, and that's compounded annually at 2%. And then on the commercial side, we're actively engaged with a financing partner, and we're moving toward a transaction to bring the project into construction later this year is the plan. But other than that, no major updates in addition to that, and no issues to flag at this time. And we'll continue to keep the IDA updated as we advance towards closing an NTP. But
Thank
that's
you,
all I've got. Yep, sure.
Thank you, Weston. Are there any questions of the board for Weston or Robert? Okay. Next, I'd like to invite either Matt or Millen to conduct the deviation hearing and describe the resolutions being presented.
Great. Thanks, Christine. So with respect to the deviation hearing, notice was sent to all affected taxing jurisdictions on January 30th. Christine went over that there were no formal comments received. At this time, I'd like to open up the hearing if any affected taxing jurisdiction is on and would like to be heard regarding the proposed pilot schedule, which was included in that notice. Now is the opportunity to do so. And hearing none, I'll close the deviation hearing and we'll move on to the resolutions. So Christine referenced seeker. The Town of Sheridan Planning Board undertook a coordinated seeker review, which means they reached out to all interested and involved agencies, including this agency, solicited comments, completed the seeker review, issued a negative declaration. So that is binding on this agency. There's no further work that is either permitted or required from this board with respect to seeker. So we can set that aside. That's why there's no standalone seeker resolution for this project in your board packets. With respect to the deviation resolution, this is again an approval of the deviation that was identified by Christine with respect to the project, a 25-year pilot that, as Christine said, actually turns negative in the long run should they decide to stick with that pilot. And the inducement resolution, Christine went through and laid out the real property tax, sales and use tax, and mortgage recording tax benefits that would be afforded. We've worked with staff to prepare these resolutions and believe that both the deviation resolution and the inducement resolution are ready for the board's vote.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks, Matt.
Did you want to give us a quick update on how much snow you got?
22 inches, which may not impress you guys, but that's a lot for my little, my little snow blower and my poor old back.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I know I'm not going to get a lot of sympathy from anybody up there. 22 inches.
Right.
He's in the Bahamas.
Did you run in it? Did you run in it though? Did you run this morning though, Millen? That's what I really want to know.
I did.
Okay, all right, good.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
Dan Hetzenrader, can you move new business A2 for us?
Yes, I'll move resolution 02242601, deviation resolution, and resolution 02242602. Final approving resolution shared into PVLLC.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
Megan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Amy Harding. Kevin Muldowney.
Aye.
Dan Demart.
Aye.
And the resolution is unanimously approved. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Next, we'll move into new business B, Dunkirk Landing LLC, presented by Mark, Christine, and Millen or Matt.
So I'll start off here. So we've talked about this project several times. I think that we actually approved a due diligence resolution 3 times for this. And it's changed, understandably so. These things are complicated, but I didn't want to talk about that. There's been a lot of misconceptions out there sort of about what is affordable housing, right? And we've been asked that question so many times. And so the planning department, and really through our Partnership for Economic Growth, our housing work group, had talked about trying to create a 1 or 2 pager that sort of tells the story about what affordable housing is, who would qualify, what does it mean? So Rebecca is going to just spend a few minutes sort of talking through this 2-pager, and and then we'll kick it over to the Regan team.
Thanks, Mark. As Mark mentioned, there's a lot of misconceptions around what affordable housing really means. And when we had a developer come into a municipality that was interested in developing a housing project, we heard from a lot of municipal leaders and communities that when this developer would come in, that affordable housing got the thought that it only meant Section 8 or extremely low income housing. But affordability really includes a large range of income categories and housing types. So we really thought it was important to develop this fact sheet to highlight what affordability really means in terms of housing and the different income levels and different housing types and ranges of housing. So as Mark mentioned, this is kind of a collaborative effort. CPEG's housing work group had completed our countywide housing strategy in 2024, and that had a bunch of different recommendations and implementation strategies. And one of them was to create affordable housing fact sheet. So through the Department of Planning and Development, we were highlighted as the lead team for that. And Courtney Dom, Stephanie Nick, Josiah Lamp, Gina Paradis, and myself really worked together to identify what was important to tell on this fact sheet. And really the key thing to take away here is that everyone needs housing. You can't forget about an array of occupations and income levels in our communities. And really the sheet points out examples of wages and occupations and how that aligns with HUD's income categories. We really wanted to go off of HUD's definition of affordable housing, and that no more than 30% of a person's total income should be spent on housing costs, including utilities. So we highlight that in the fact sheet. We also wanted to really highlight those income categories related to HUD between our extremely low, very low income, and moderate income. So that goes from 0% to 120% is our typical housing projects that come in that want to take advantage of those housing credits. And then in the back, I think it's really important to point out to show a different spectrum of housing and where those income categories lie in relationship to that type of housing. So you can kind of see here, if I fall within that 60% to 80%, that's more of the affordable rental housing or workforce housing. But then as you get from 80% to 120%, really that's the county's market rate housing. So if a developer came in and said, I want to create affordable housing, but then he's going with an 80 to 120% income strategy, that's really market rate for Chautauqua County. And I think it's really important to identify that, to point out that, and highlight those kind of misconceptions. I also like the fact that we kind of thought about, incomes change throughout a person's lifespan. So we really wanted to identify in a case study that highlights someone working, graduating from SUNY JCC and working through a certain occupation and showing that person's income and how that relates to the housing type that they're looking for in the county, and how, eventually they might move out of that as they improve in their occupation. And lastly, we included a specific real life example. STEL, Southern Tier for Environments and Living, did a really wonderful project in the city of Dunkirk along their Main Street corridor, kind of a spot project that really highlights the area median income around 60% and how that transformed that Main Street area. So, and lastly, just pointing out that 77% of Chautauqua County households, in regards to HUD's 4-person family, may qualify for affordable housing programs. So that's huge to point out that significance of that percentage is eligible in our county. So we really try to think of all angles and include that. And we want to utilize this for our municipal leaders, our residents to educate, and we'll be doing a press release to get this out to the public.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, again, majority of our households in this county would qualify for affordable housing. That's a key takeaway here. So thanks for doing that, and thanks to your department folks. Yep. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Very timely, and this is a great piece. I appreciate that. Okay. And I'm sure Gabe will have comments in just a few minutes. Gabe Regan is with us again. You've all met Gabe. This is probably the 4th time. Gabe, and I know Gabe will have some comments about Dunkirk Landing as a workforce housing project. So you can see that on the kind of chart that's listed on the back page of the flyer that Rebecca handed out. And I'm sure he'll have comments in just a few minutes. But I'll just quickly do a recap before we proceed. So this project is now known as Dunkirk Landing LLC, previously presented as Reagan Development Corp. In some of the early due diligence resolutions before the entity was identified. And it also has a project name of Homesteads at Dunkirk Landing, which you may have seen or will see in some of the marketing going forward for the project. This is located in the city of Dunkirk at 2 different locations. The one location is on Washington Avenue, 208-214 and 220 Washington Avenue, which is kind of directly behind our Dunkirk office at the Center for Innovation and Economic Development. And then there's some surrounding parcels there too that are included in addition to the structure. And then also located on 4th Street at 160 to 164 East of 4th Street in the city of Dunkirk. So we, again, presented due diligence resolutions a few times, fine-tuned exactly what that project scope description was going to be at last month's meeting. Today we're presenting the deviation hearing deviation resolutions, secret, and final resolutions. This is an approximately $38 million project, so very significant. I mentioned it's in the city of Dunkirk. It is a city of Dunkirk DRI project, and it also, thank you, Rebecca and team, for facilitating the Chautauqua County an infrastructure grant as well for this project. It includes the demolition of the structures on Washington Avenue that I mentioned, and also 10,000 square foot of the structure on 4th Street. And I know there's been some confusion, so I just wanted to clarify. It's just like the far left, if you're facing the plaza, the far left, the older, it's been vacant for quite some time. There's a couple of storefronts there, just that 10,000 square foot. There's also another over 50,000 square foot that's not part of this project on a totally different parcel. It just might not look that way from the street. Is that right, Gabe?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And there's about 12 parcels involved, and I just wanted to point out about 10 of those parcels have been off the tax roll for a long time. Some are vacant property owned by a city of Dunkirk entity, and then the building behind us is owned by a Dunkirk entity and has been since 2009. So, so this would be huge to have those returned to the tax roll. It includes 78 newly constructed workforce housing apartments and a commercial space for daycare operation. The daycare operation will be on the 4th Street property. 11 units will be built as fully accessible and adapted for residents with mobility or hearing and vision impairments. And 16 of those units will be set aside for an e-shy service provider called Soldier On that will provide supportive housing to tenants and assisting homeless veterans find housing. The request is for a pilot with real property tax abatement requested for 30 years. It would be a deviation, and the proposed schedule would fix the first 5 years at the current tax rate, and then the remaining 25 years would be based on 2% of the effective rental income, which is consistent with what we've done on other projects of this type. The total pilot payments are estimated, or would be $691,368. The estimated exemption is $2,342,875. The reason for the 30-year pilot is that it matches the New York State Housing and Community Renewal regulatory period that restricts rents and incomes related to this project. The 30-year pilot is a requirement of the tax credit investor and the permanent lender, and the pilot has to be coterminous with the permanent loan to assure all financial parties to the development transaction that the underwriting will be successful. Sorry, covered up part of this. And allow all the costs, including the mortgage, to be paid for a 30-year period. So there's a rationale behind the request for the 30-year pilot. I mentioned that some of the properties, most of the properties are off the tax roll. This project would increase municipal revenue by providing future payments of new water and sewer fees, ad valorem taxes, property taxes, including those parcels off the roll, and having taxes paid on time. The sales tax abatement is requested at $1.5 million, and the mortgage recording tax abatement would be $282,509. We did have 2 conversations with the mayor of the city of Dunkirk, Mayor Bedoyes, and most recently, just in January of this year. And we'd reviewed the initial pilot schedule, the update once everything was finalized, and she gave us her blessing and said, please proceed. This project's really important for the city of Dunkirk. And as you may recall, Vince DeJoy, the development director for the city of Dunkirk, was here last month and made statements in support of the request. We conducted cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis is 20-to-1, so $20 benefit for every $1 in incentive offered. We also held a public hearing on February 13th, and there were no attendees and no written comments received. I'll let Matt in a few minutes describe the seeker review. This is a little bit different in how it was approached. Nothing concerning, but the city of Dunkirk did do a coordinated review. At that time, IDA assistance wasn't contemplated, so we weren't included. So Matt can talk about that and present the resolution in just a minute. For timeline, the construction, I know you're doing some of the cleanup right now, Gabe, and I saw the fencing around the 4th Street, actually at both locations, and you've got dumpsters cleaning out some stuff right now, but the real construction would commence as soon as you can close, which may be March or April. Is that what you're anticipating?
Yeah, we're still anticipating, and sorry for my voice. We're still anticipating a March 13th closing. I don't think that we're going to obviously start the ground up construction at that point, as the buildings are still standing, and we probably won't be able to demo them and complete the brownfield cleanup remediation before that date. That being said, the demo and the remediation will take place, and hopefully we can start the ground up construction sometime in April. So that's our
Okay.
current schedule.
Thank you. And then first occupancy, was it late 2027?
Yeah, we're looking at a October, November, a Q4 2027 occupancy.
Okay, so yeah, this is going to happen quickly. Did you have any other updates that you wanted to report to the board?
I don't. We're working diligently with our financial investors and New York State Homes and Community Renewal to get to our March 13th date. So we're gearing up to get ready to do that. And besides the light abatement and demo that we started, I don't have any further updates.
Okay, thank you very much. I would then ask Matt and Millen to conduct the deviation hearing and present the resolutions.
Sure. So I'll take over the deviation resolution. So as with the prior deviation hearing, a notice was sent out on February 2nd to all affected taxing jurisdictions that included the 20 to 30-year pilot schedule. Beyond the informal comments and support we received from the city, no comments were received from any of the affected taxing jurisdictions. I'll open the deviation hearing and offer the opportunity for any members, representatives of the affected taxing jurisdictions to speak if they have comments on the application. And hearing none, I'll close the deviation hearing. You want me to roll into the resolutions? Great.
Thank you.
So with respect to the seeker resolution, you heard me say with respect to the prior project that we were included in a coordinated review, so you didn't have to do anything, which was great, and it was easy and it was fun. Unfortunately, this time the city missed us. So what you have in your packets is a resolution we prepared working with staff, which looks into the 18 different areas of environmental concern you would expect to analyze pursuant to seeker. This resolution builds upon the work done by the city. So it adopts a lot of what they did. We didn't reinvent the wheel or demand a ton of new stuff from the applicant. We built off what they had already done to satisfy the city's process. One thing I'll highlight that was referenced in passing just now is the fact that the project is in the brownfield cleanup program, which means they're working with the state of New York, the Department of Environmental Conservation, to remediate the site. So they're actually going in and making the site cleaner than it was when they found it, right? And in exchange for that, they'll get in certain tax credits and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the site is actually being actively remediated by the applicant, all that overseen by the state, and they'll get a certificate of completion for that work before they proceed with vertical construction. With that, that's the seeker resolution. As far as the inducement resolution and the deviation resolution, obviously the deviation resolution approves the deviation we discussed. The inducement resolution goes through, and Christina already laid out the real property tax, sales and use tax, and mortgage recording tax benefits that are proposed. So we've worked closely with Christine on this one for a long while now. And I'm happy to say that at this point, the deviation resolution and the inducement resolution and the seeker resolution are ready for the board's vote.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Ted, can you move new business B2 for us?
Move resolution 02242603 seeker resolution and resolution 02242604 deviation resolution 02242605 final approving resolution Dunkirk Landing LLC.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Thank you. Go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Dan Hetzenrader.
Aye.
Ted Whitman.
Aye.
Megan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Amy Harding.
Aye.
Kevin Muldowney.
Aye.
Dan DeMart.
Aye.
Resolutions are unanimously approved, and we certainly wish you well. It's been a long process, and hopefully moving forward for you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. We're very excited to get going and working with you guys and the city of Dunkirk and Chautauqua County. So we appreciate it, and we'll keep you all apprised as our progress moves along.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move into the executive director's report.
All right. So while Jason's passing out the annual report 2025, I'm just going to say a few words. And then if you wouldn't mind, we'll just kind of follow along and I'll talk through the annual report. It sort of tells the story of the year we had. First of all, though, I wanted to just say how fortunate I think not only me, but the staff and all of us should be for doing the work we do, right? What a great thing to be able to help businesses, help people, help families to find work and be able to, take care of their families and, and support their towns and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just really gratified, for being able to be a part of this organization, to be honest with you. And I wanted to thank the board for all the work you do and the staff. We have a rock star staff. All of our consultants, Phillips Lytle, Harris Beach, Clark Patterson, Lee, and others. Sue and Ian Kellogg helped put this together. Jason led the charge. Faulkner Printing printed it. I'm grateful to the legislature, especially Kevin Muldowney. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not on the legislature anymore. I'm sorry. Tom Harmon, my bad. Tom Harmon, but you were in the past. And then of course, PJ and our county executive Wendell, others, it's really, I'm really grateful. I would characterize this as having, being a solid year. It wasn't epic, but it was solid. The last 2 years, we had some huge projects that put us up in the hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. And we weren't there this year. It was challenging, but I think we had a really solid year. And already in 2026, in the first couple of months, we've surpassed what we did all of last year. So a lot of the work that we were doing in 2025 is carried over into 2026. My colleagues across the state, we met in Albany a couple of weeks ago for the EDC conference, and they're all feeling that sort of headwind right now as well. There's some trepidation, cautiousness, whatever you want to call it out there. But we had a solid year. So, if you look at summary of accomplishments, our infographic there, you can see that we were involved in about $885 million worth of projects in 2025. There was about 9 projects that we approved. The total number of jobs created between permanent and construction jobs, about 640. We involved in retaining about 243 jobs. Did 2 loans. And the pilot payments to taxing jurisdictions is about $5 million. So pretty good stuff. Real quick, some of the projects that we did, of course, were Maple Vale Farms. Big project, building a brand new facility in the town of Mina. They were landlocked and really needed to expand, and there was threats of them going into Pennsylvania, and we kept them here. That was really good. The Welch building project, great housing in the old Welch headquarters building. about a $20 million project. We did 5 solar projects, which will create about 16.4 megawatts of clean energy when fully completed. We helped out the Tri-County Country Club with a big project. We did a loan to support Ivory Acres of about $240,000 in the town of Carroll. So, those are some really great projects. Also, we spent a lot of time and effort on our shovel-ready sites, which I'll talk about in a minute here. So if you flip the page, I talked about Maplevale Farms. It's going to retain about 213 jobs and create 23 new jobs. And then there's 300 to 400 temporary jobs that for construction. The shovel-ready sites, Mason and Ripley. Ripley's a $16 million project, about 150 acres, a lot of different funding sources, grants, ARPA money from the county, capital projects money, IDA money, ARC money, New York State ESD money. And that is currently up for bid. So we hope to have that project completed by the end of the summer. It's been a long haul. Mason Industrial Park, the bids have already been opened. And I'll be talking to the lowest bidder this week and locking that down, and that construction on that should get going soon. Through the partnership, I'm on number 3 now. We assisted a number of communities applying for both the DRI funding and the Fast New York funding. And it's not an easy thing to put these applications together. It involves, so through the partnership, we paid for consultants to help them do that. And, City of Jamestown just applied for 10 million. We're crossing our fingers on that. I went to Buffalo and helped them with a presentation to the REDC. We also provided technical assistance to a number of, Faulkner, Finley Lake, and Sherman. We're crossing our on the $4.5 million grant applications. We hope one of them gets that. And then, of course, in 2025, the Village of Westfield was awarded a New York Forward grant, $4.5 million, and we assisted them as well. So it really made sense. We celebrated the grand opening of the White Inn. I've been there many, many times, and it's great. It's always great. Couldn't ask for more. What a great project. And we were a chief driver behind that. We've received another $1 million in funding for the brownfield cleanup efforts. We recognized early on, we have a lot of brownfields here in Chautauqua County. And, being able to get some assistance from the state to help us to move those forward through providing funding to developers to, address that. We received $600,000 a couple of years ago. We lent that out. I think it was more than 600. I think it was 750 all said. And then we recapitalized that through this $1 million we just got. And then we also received another $500,000 to do environmental site assessments and asbestos surveys. So for key buildings that we can go in there and we can see what we're dealing with, understand what the issues are, what the problems are. That's a big one. We updated our countywide economic development strategic plan through the partnership. Josiah led that effort. Camoin was our consultant. And we sort of look back at what we created. I think it was in 2019 or 2020. And then, where did we accomplish what we set out to do? Where did we fall short? What are our new goals? That kind of thing. And then also putting together an impact report that highlights all our success stories. The Ralph Wilson Foundation is really looking at us as a model for rural communities and how they can sort of create these public-private partnerships that go beyond what, the IDA. We can't do that kind of stuff in the county as well. And so we're going to take that show on the road, and sort of pat ourselves on the back a little bit and hopefully help other communities. We've got a number of new housing projects underway. If you haven't been by the Silver Creek, where the Silver Creek School was, we went by it this last weekend. I can't believe, really, I can't believe how incredible that project's going to be. The building is incredible. So we got that project going up, the Welch building, the Gateway Lofts. We got the old bank building in Dunkirk, the Lakeside Works project that we're working on right now with Peak. So there's a lot of about 400 units in housing that's being developed here. We hired Josiah Lamp for program manager of CPEG, and Josiah's doing a great job along with the rest of the staff. It was kind of good timing, right? Because it was time for us to update the economic development strategy and the sort of impact report. So it was a good time for him to step in, and we got so much other stuff going on that, Nate was doing a lot of that. And so anyway, it's working out great. And then, and I'm stating the obvious here, I guess, but continue to market the county for business development, relocation, and tourism, right? We have to continue to, push it out there, what a great place this is to live and work and invest. And, quality of life is now such a key topic when you're talking about development. And, Jason has led the charge on the Live CHQ and Choose CHQ effort. And we're making really good traction. We'll see what, I'm hoping in the next census, we can see a leveling off or maybe a slight increase in the amount of population here. But since the 1970s, we've been losing population. And, hopefully all this work is going to lead to reversing that. At the bottom of this page, we talk about our loan program. We have a balance of about $20 million out there working in the community. We have approximately $1 million available right now, but we have at least half of that earmarked, probably more. But we keep getting these payments back, and we just keep lending it out. And we do have a fairly high reserve of over 20%, but we never reach that with bad loans. But it's there in case we do, and we're taking a conservative approach. Economic development goals. Again, we need to be aggressive with business retention and expansion. That involves our business development manager, Shelby, myself, others, going out, meeting with the companies and talking to them about where they're at and what they're thinking about, and so that we can be there and to help them push a project along, or if they're having issues, to help reverse that. Shovel-ready sites, Ripley and Ellicott, I already talked about when we're looking at another large site, and we're trying to make that happen too. It can't be one and done or two and done. We need to constantly be bringing new inventory into play, because in one fell swoop, that land can be bought, or in this case, two, right? Somebody could come along and buy the 150 acres and do something. Now what do we have, right? Or the 40 acres over here in Ellicott. The other thing I think is really important, and we've been doing this, a lot of this is reactivating these properties of community importance. The Furniture Mart building, we already talked about the Silver Creek School. We helped make that happen. The Lakeshore Hospital, we helped make that happen, right? We got to make sure that we get those to the finish line. The truck light building in Ellicott, we're working on some stuff for that. The Welch building in Westfield, that's looking like, it's gonna happen, but we got to keep pushing it. The Serta Simmons building in Ellicott, a little over 100,000 square feet. That is, Rose is working close with the realtor on that to make sure that happens. Hotel Lenhart in Bemis. And we just toured that with the developers a couple of weeks ago. And making sure these things all get across the finish line. And then as other buildings become vacant, like the Maple Vale Farms, right? That's going to be now another building that we need to find a tenant for. And so we're always working on that. Immunity Bio and Electrovia, Immunity Bio has sort of been there. But we really need to make sure that they move forward with what they originally promised. And there definitely is some new developments there, and we're going to continue to push that, working jointly with the state. Electrovia, looks like they're gearing up now. We got to get that closed. And that's been I know Millen's been working on that, and that's been a real challenge. A lot of different, it's very complicated, the way it's financed and everything. So got to get that done. Implementing the recommendations from the economic development strategy that I talked about, acquiring and preparing new shovel-ready sites. Yeah, talked about that. Continue the Live CHQ initiative. We can't let that, we just got to keep pushing that and finding new ways to market this county. And collaborating with the municipalities throughout the county. And we've done a lot of that, like I talked about with the CPEG. And also the planning department is proactively meeting with about a dozen, I think last year, communities each year to really meet with their municipal leaders, talk about what's going on and make sure that we're in front of them. The government reduction initiative that the county executive launched a few months ago, we're taking the lead on primarily through the planning department on figuring out what that looks like. The application, the committee to review, the presentation to the legislature, the resolution, all that stuff. So we're taking the lead on that. We've got a couple of applications that are coming up here for March to take advantage of that. We got some other ones in the queue. And then, of course, the NRG reuse initiative. And we've made some good progress there. We had a really good meeting with NRG a couple of weeks ago, feeling optimistic about that. But again, that's one that is very complicated. It's at times frustrating, very frustrating, but we're continuing to sort of push them and make that happen. So yeah, that's sort of on the IDA side. And then with a partnership, if you want to look at the infographic on this one as well. The big number here is the $6.2 million of that was leveraged. So for I don't know what the ratio is now, but for every dollar that we spend at the partnership, I know the old number was $44 is leveraged, but I think it's now, last year was like in the high 20s. So that's a really good return on investment. And again, it's helping these communities with applying for funding and doing projects that they're going after grant money. They're helping them with the application, but also the match, providing the match that they don't have. And it's that kind of thing. So we assisted 51 projects in 2025. The Partnership for Economic Growth, right? Meetings, yes, 163 meetings with communities. We were awarded 17, we awarded 17 grants, and you can see that later on. 75 different partners engaged, and we secured over $630,000 in funding from a number of different sources. I won't go on too long about this, but when you think about economic development, it's more than just incentives. I always think about what's the pillars of economic development? Think about it. It is incentives, right? You got to have, and having sites and all that stuff, but it's also, do you have the housing, right? You have to have housing in order to attract companies that are going to create jobs. You got to have the infrastructure. Do we have water, sewer, electric, gas? Do you, placemaking, you know, do you have nice communities, walkable communities, places that people want to live? So we have to really think about improving our main streets and workforce development, workforce readiness. Do we have the right people? Do we have them trained? Do we have programs that help them train to fill these open jobs? So that's really what those 5 work groups are all about. And you sort of see on this, you know, structure here of, you know, you have the IDA and then under that you have critic, right? And critic is where this thing lives. So there is a advisory board, but this board ultimately reviews the financials, makes the decisions about how money is spent. But you can see there's collaboration with the Department of Planning, the IDA, et cetera. So this next page, page 10, just sort of gives you an idea of where we're getting our money from. You know, Gabby, NCCF, the county, Ralph Wilson Foundation, CRCF, the Lene Foundation, Ralph Wilson Foundation, and others. So that's where the $630,000 comes from. And then again, when we talk about leveraging, you can see those big numbers there. Village Westfield, 4.5 million. We probably spent $30,000 to pay for a consultant or less. And, you know, result in $4.5 million return, and then a whole bunch of other projects. So you can sort of see that there. And then on the next page, you can see where we lent funding, where we awarded grants to projects. So we have a competitive process every year, application, review committee, and make a decision about where we want to spend that $269,000 in this case. But you can see the types of projects that we're supporting, including Dream It, Do It, and others. And then I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you can see the work groups. You can sort of see business development work group is working on these brownfield opportunity area. I talked about that grant that we got, but there's a number of buildings along here that will be part of that, supporting us on shovel-ready sites, activating the Chautauqua River right down here. We got a couple of grants, about $2 million worth of funding to do a bunch of projects down there that will bring more people down to that area. The housing development work group has helped us with these projects that we're working on. The workforce development group has really been concentrating on the Live CHQ talent attraction and retention initiative, and Monica Simpson, workforce ambassador program, CHQ professionals. We have a number of placemaking work group projects, including trails, paint CHQ, the DRI applications, DRI support, CHQ trail days. So there's a lot more. I'm just sort of scratching the surface, but you go to the last page, you can see our wonderful board here, led by our fearless leader, Gary. Thank you, Gary. And then you can see our staff, and under the staff, you can see 2 symbols. One is the IDA and the other is the partnership symbol. So you can sort of see who's doing what. Obviously, I'm splitting my time between the county, the IDA, and the partnership. And you can sort of see how others are splitting their time here. So wonderful staff, and I'm really appreciative. So that's what I have.
Very impressive. Well done for Mark, the whole staff. Just continue to be impressed with all that you're doing and all the projects we have coming up into the future. Thank you. Next, we'll move into the treasurer's report.
So that's page 1 of the financials. This for January. So this is 1 month, obviously. We did recognize a lot of administration fees because we have a couple big projects that are on the verge of closing, and we issued invoices for their admin fees. So you'll see that really is driving the profitability for January. That obviously will kind of get caught up because we're going to receive the cash in February February into March when those projects close. And then kind of, and continue to incur expense to kind of offset that. So I'll jump to the balance sheet. Again, we're comfortable as far as cash goes, but you have to offset the deferred revenue because those are kind of earmarked. As we kind of start the Ripley project, we'll have some funding, not really issues because we're comfortable, but where, we spend the money and then we have to apply for reimbursement. So we're sitting pretty when it comes to having a comfortable cash position to feed those projects. And then again, when you look at the comparison to budget, we are sitting pretty because we recognize that income for those bigger projects that are going to close in February and March. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Just a one comment real quick.
Mhm.
At the next meeting, at March meeting, we will be bringing a resolution to this group to approve the bond agreement. And that's with the county for 5.25 million. And so that'll help give us sort of that comfort that we need to help us with that reimbursement scenario.
Yes, yep. So we'll have a little bit of CCIDA cash to cover as we need, and then also the bond. Obviously, if we don't need to utilize the bond, or if we can pay the bond back more timely, that'll save us on interest. So that's why we're trying to be very strategic in our cash position going into this project. Another note for next month's meeting is when we will be presenting the 2025 financials. I don't expect a big swing in what was presented last month for our interim financials that I provided for as a draft status. I'm not expecting a big swing in those.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I'll move.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Been accepted. At this point, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing the financial or credit history of a particular person or corporation. In particular, I would like to discuss the status of our own portfolio and the financial and credit status of some of our borrowers. I hear such a motion. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll go into executive session. Open session, I would like to.
Sorry, just a moment.
No, that's fine. We are back in open session. I would like to report that there were no actions or votes taken during executive session and therefore no minutes of the meeting were taken. Any old business to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll consider the meeting adjourned. And please note that the next IDA board meeting, March 24th, will be in Dunkirk at the Center for Innovation and Economic Development.